we were in the opposite end zone to the catch, not catch. And so it happens, and we were like, what the heck just happened? I was like, I don't think so. I don't think that's a touchdown. Like, what is going on here? And immediately the fireworks go off, like the fireworks are going off and
Oh,
stuff. And I'm
wow.
like, where's the replay? What's the replay? And then my phone started just like blowing up. Like I'm getting like texts like seconds after it ends, because the TV coverage, of course, is showing the replay over and over and over. And so we were just kind of sat there stunned, and all the other Packer fans, we were also kind of, everybody's in that same kind of like, what is happening?
Welcome to Tales from the Tundra, a show that captures one team's history told through the eyes of the fan. My name is Ben, and today Kristy joins the show. Kristy is a die-hard Packers fan who resides in Canada. During our conversation, we talk about how she became a Packers fan despite being born and raised in Canada. We talk about trips to Green Bay, trips to other stadiums, and honestly, so much more. This was such a fun episode. I've been following Kristy on Instagram for a while now, so it was really cool to hear her story because she is such a passionate Packers fan. So without delaying any further, this is episode 17 of Tales from the Tundra with Kristy. Enjoy. Just a quick editorial note: as I was doing editing on the video, I noticed that the video quality for Kristy kind of can come and go throughout the episode. It's completely on my end. I apologize in advance. I think we had a storm or something rolling through when we were recording it, which appeared to mess with the video quality. Story's still great, audio's still great, all that stuff. So appreciate you bearing through it, but my apologies once again. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Over the years, I've talked to a lot of different Packers fans from all over the world. I've been fortunate enough to learn how so many people become Packers fans, and it's always interesting to me to hear how someone who's not born or raised in the United States becomes such a passionate fan of a team thousands of miles away. And that's where we started with Kristy today.
My grandpa, he was from Wasaki, and
Okay.
he was born in Wasaki in the early 1900s. And after a period of time, he left Wisconsin, and he worked his way across the US and up into Canada through the lumber industry. And then
Okay.
he met my grandma and settled down. They had a family, two sons, and my dad being obviously one of those. And then my grandpa passed away when I was 3. So I didn't really get to know him very much, obviously, as kind of an adult or
Right.
young kid or anything like that and stuff. And family's always been like super, super important to me. And I have a really close family, which I'm very blessed for. And my dad was always a super huge sports fan. And I was like, on his armchair like all the time. Now he's a Browns fan, and
Interesting.
I
Okay.
know, I know. We won't hold that against him, but it was in like the Jim Brown days and stuff, and
Yeah,
like when they were
sure.
actually good. And now it's just kind of fun because they're obviously so terrible, and it's great to like razz them about it and stuff.
Right.
And so, um, in kind of like, I'd say probably in like the early 2000s, like approaching the end of the Favre era, it was when really I got invested. And of course, at that time, there was no social media, there was no like all the streaming platforms and things where you
Yeah.
could get every single game from any team you wanted at any time. So they played on the Canadian TV. They played the popular teams at the time, the Packers,
Okay.
the Cowboys, the big rivalries and stuff like that. So I started logging a lot of time with him. I will say they never play the Browns. they, they still never play the Browns.
Yeah, very,
And
very rarely for sure.
that might change though, with some Steeler Brown games coming up, but and stuff. And so I thought, like, what a great way to kind of honor our history and his legacy, and to not be a Browns fan, be a Packers fan instead. So
Very cool.
yeah, yeah. So that's kind of like how it came to be. And it was funny because the first time, well, I should say, a lot of people think, I guess because I'm a female sports fan, and you've seen my Instagram and stuff, like I pretty much like love the Packers so much, and
Right.
stuff. I think a lot of people still think, and I hate to generalize, but that um, I'm a Packers fan because my husband's a Packers fan. I feel like that's still a thing and stuff, but
Right.
it's not. He when I met him didn't really have an allegiance to any team, and
That was
now he,
that was gonna be one of my questions because
yeah,
you both are very passionate. And I
well,
I by no means was in that camp of thinking that you are because of him.
yeah,
I was like, Kristy is diehard. Like Kristy's all about the Packers. And just because your husband's passionate, or I should say, if your husband's passionate, it's not going to translate to you being that passionate. And you
yeah,
can't fake the passion you have for the Packers. Like you can't just be like, oh, I'm a Packers fan by product and be that passionate.
yeah. Thanks, I appreciate that. Yeah, it was funny because he didn't really have any allegiance, but the first time that we went to Green Bay together, I always drive up to Wasaki and get my dad a T-shirt that says Wasaki on it.
Oh,
And
that's
so
awesome.
my husband had never been to like small town America before, and so the first time we went together, he we stayed in Milwaukee for a night, and then we picked up a car and headed up towards Green Bay and through to Wasaki, and it was November and it was getting dark early, and
Mm.
he's like, I don't know, he's like, we're gonna get there and everything's gonna be closed, and he's like, you're not gonna find a T-shirt. I said, no, don't worry. I said the grocery store will still be open, and he's like, you're not going to get a T-shirt at a grocery store. Like that doesn't happen here in Canada. Like that's not a thing, and stuff. And so I was like, okay, yeah, okay, honey, that's fine. You just sit there and don't worry about it. And then sure enough, it was like dark when we got to Wasaki, and I pulled into I don't remember what it was called, but I said, just hang on for a second. I ran in and I came out with the T-shirt, and he was like, what is happening right now? I said, I know exactly. So yeah, so it's that's how I became a fan was essentially because of my grandpa's history, and here we are today.
So you said your grandpa was born and kind of
Yeah,
grew up there a little bit and then migrated around till he landed in Canada.
yeah.
Did he follow the Packers then? Or was it or like were you just like,
He
hey, I love that he's from Wisconsin. I love this team's from Wisconsin, so I'm gonna just rock it. Because
yeah,
you said he was born in like the 1900s, so the Packers
yeah,
were, I
just
mean,
before. Yeah,
yes.
he was
So it's
he
not like
was
they were huge at that point.
no, they it would have been like just before inception, like in
Right.
the City Field days and that kind of era and stuff. So yeah, it was a bit of both. It's kind of now there's not as much hit documented history of people now. Like there's the
Right.
social
That's
media
true.
and the photo albums didn't have all the photos that they have now, or everything that we're tracking. And that's actually where I think, even when you asked me to come on the podcast, and I thought this is so great, like how social media has united people
Yeah.
that love certain things and
Mhm.
stuff. And I thought, that's the coolest part. I think even like we could sit and like talk stats all day and talk plays and things like this and stuff like that, but I think really at the end of the day, when you sit back 20, 30 years from now, are you going to remember like exactly how many yards? Some people will, but like
Right. Yeah, most people
somebody
won't.
gets, or are you going to remember who you were with
Yeah.
when this happened, and that feeling you had? And I think that's what one of the things that really drives me is and makes me so passionate, I think, is um everybody else and the experiences, and I have just like so many great memories from being a Packers fan with people that I've met and
Right.
all over the world that now I'm friends with or in touch with and stuff, just from being a Packers fan.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because I have a good friend who he's from Michigan, and my family's all Vikings fans, and I became a Packers fan just by chance. And I look at where it's taken me in my life. Like I live in Green Bay now because I'm a Packers fan, and I met my wife here, and I have a son now. And my one friend who's from Michigan, him and I became friends because of the Packers, and he moved in with me for a while. And you think about like if you take out this one little piece of your life, how much it changes everything. And that's the incredible part about sports and what it can do for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned your husband's first time going to
Yeah.
Wisconsin, going to small town. Was he on the Packers bandwagon at that point, or was it still like, okay, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna root for this team? Because looking at it, you both are very like passionate fans. You're both like travel a lot for the Packers or go to a lot of different things. Both represent very well. So I honestly thought you somehow maybe met like someone that was a very avid fan as well, and that was like kind of what kind of brought you together. So it's cool that you brought him to that side and showed him Wisconsin and showed him Green Bay.
I trained him.
I mean, I think any husband can confirm that their wives train them in some way or another. So I
Yeah.
think that's good.
So when he did finally go to Green Bay for his first time, he was already on the wagon.
Okay.
So yeah, he was. And I think that was good because it really let him embrace everything and
Yeah.
stuff. And I like seeing stuff through somebody else's eyes
Right.
as well. Like that is such a thrill for me to watch somebody like we did the stadium tour, and it was actually the that time that we went was the game against the Cowboys, Mike McCarthy's return
Oh,
to
sure.
Green Bay. It went to overtime. It was November and stuff. So it was a big weekend, obviously, because it was, the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy
Mhm.
and all of that and stuff. And so they had the stadium tours that had the alumni hosting the tours. And I thought, and I had already done the tour before, where you go up on the roof and everything, which I think is just phenomenal to be up there and like look over the stadium.
Yeah, it's
And
wild.
so I signed us up for the alumni tour way, way, way early on, like it's the minute they announced them. And Jermichael Finley was going to be our host and stuff. And then I went in and I saw, oh shoot, that uh tour didn't take you up to the roof. And I was like, no, he's got to go up there. He has to see this stadium like from that vantage point, that
Yeah.
viewpoint, and stuff. So I canceled it. And it was actually kind of funny because we had decided I did something that trip that I'd never done before. Was I did the trolley tour.
Okay. Yeah.
Gosh, that was amazing. If anybody has never done that before, that trolley tour, so fun. And you just learn so much and seeing City Field and things. But anyways, we were just waiting to get on the trolley and my husband was like, I gotta use the bathroom. And so he's in the bathroom and I'm waiting outside the bathroom. It was just kind of like outside the pro shop there. And who do I see? All of a sudden I see Jermichael Finley going in the bathroom and stuff. And I was like, whoa. And so I was just very casual. I wasn't super crazy. And I waited for, I didn't like stand next to the bathroom door or anything. I like waited till he come out and I was like, hey, I was like, I'm a really big fan of yours. I was like, can we take a selfie? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. Like for sure. So, we take the selfie and he's like, have a good one and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, cool. And then my husband came out and I would say this, at that point he because he's a newer fan, obviously much newer than me, he doesn't know all of kind of like the
Right.
those players and stuff. Like he definitely became a fan well after our last Super Bowl.
Mhm.
So I said to him, I showed him the picture. I said, hey, look, I said I just got a selfie with Jermichael Finley. And he was like, what? I said, yeah, he was in the bathroom with you. Didn't you see him? And he was like, no, I didn't see him in the bathroom. And I was like, well,
You don't look around while you're in the bathroom. There, you're
I
just
guess not. I guess that's,
laser focused. That is
yeah,
like that's male bathroom etiquette
yeah,
101. You don't look to the left or right. You're
yeah.
just straight ahead all times. Um,
Fair enough. I probably should have thought of that. So,
um, that's classic. I do think even if your husband would have been a fan back in that era, it takes it's a different level to recognize players without helmets on.
oh,
So
for
like
sure. Yeah,
because even when you go to training camp and you see them coming back on bikes without
yeah.
their uniform, without their helmet, you're like, man, sometimes it's really hard to know who people are, especially a player that hasn't played in, at that point, it had to be close to a decade because that was 22.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
what Finley's final year was. I don't even remember when his final year was. Had to be around that time,
Yeah, a couple years
2012 or
before that, I
13.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, he's probably almost been out of the league a decade at that point. So to recognize him,
I give
that
him a pass. I
yeah.
should have given him a big pass,
Well,
but
I'm just
I
patting
was very
you on the
excited at
back
the moment.
because I'm just patting you on the back because that's a killer snipe to like recognize him that easily, a decade after he's been done playing. So good on you. I love that story. When was your first trip to Green Bay?
My first trip, actually, it's kind of funny because I worked at this company, and my boss, a giant Seahawks fan, which, like I said before, a lot of West Coasters are Seahawks fans.
Mm-hmm.
And so I worked and I work in sales and marketing. And so I had this boss, and he said, if I land this specific account, he will pay for me for my flight to Green Bay. And the Canadian dollar used to be at par like 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was like 1 for 1.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like, one American dollar is like $1.40 Canadian. So it
Yep.
really, like, it costs us a lot to come down there and stuff. And so it hasn't been great for a while. So anyway, so he said, land this account, I'll send you to Green Bay. And I had a friend who was also super huge Packers fan, and I said to him, hey, like, if I get this account, are you up for this trip? And so we went
Wow.
to Bears Packers week 10. It was the game Aaron Rodgers threw, what was it, 6 touchdown passes in the first half. It was 42-0.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a salute to service game. The SNF bus was there. It was awesome because and bad, I try to say I'm a good person, but in front of us were 2 Bears fans, and like, it was just like slaughter, right? And we were just like, this is the greatest thing ever,
Right.
like, it's one thing to be at a competitive game. I do love, because we're big hockey fans and stuff too. One thing to be at a competitive sports game, but it's also like something to travel, your first time 2,200 miles, and know it's pretty much guaranteed win time at halftime. Like, a
Yeah.
lot of crazy things would have to happen for this game to really go sideways, and stuff. So these poor kids in front of us, they were like, at halftime, people were heckling them, and all in good fun. There wasn't anything like that,
Right.
and they never came back after half. But yeah, that was my first trip, so it was pretty awesome to get to see, A Rod in a performance like that, and
I,
stuff.
I was at the game as well, and it was funny how many people left at halftime. It felt like the stadium just got not quieter, but like when it's full, you kind of get more insulation from everything, and then second
Yes.
half, it felt like it's more breezy, more a little bit more cold. But even the second half had its moments. There's still a
Mhm.
lot of fun moments that kept it a
Oh,
little bit
yeah.
exciting because you're thinking to yourself at halftime like, man, this game's done. Rogers probably isn't playing much more. Is this going to be like a really boring second half? But it was a pretty fun one still.
Yeah, it was. And that was they still use the picture now on social media. That was the game. They gave us all those. In your seat was a color coded, and we held it up, and it
Yeah,
was
the
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 flag.
flag and
Hmm.
everything. Yeah, and they still use that today. Like, anytime I see that picture. And I had been on a trip in Egypt just like a year or two before, and there was a couple from Milwaukee and we're still friends, that was there, and he actually texted me like a screenshot, because he knew we were there. He texted me a screenshot of it from his TV, like the minute it happened, the minute like they did the flyover and the
That's
Sunday night
cool.
football and stuff. Yeah, it was awesome. So it was obviously a great, amazing first experience to get to go there.
That's so awesome. What a like you talked about liking competitive games, but they're like it's so nice too to have those ones where you're just like can breathe and enjoy
Yeah,
the moment
yeah,
rather than being
yeah.
stressed. Hey, it's Ben. Sorry to jump in, but I wanted to draw the giveaway winner for last week's episode. Thank you to everyone who took the time to fill out the form, and thanks to everyone who's watched the show. I also want to say thank you to Nicolay Law, because without them, these giveaways wouldn't be possible. So if you are injured, get Nicolay. All right, let's see what we got here. This one feels like a good one here. And this week's winner is, I folded it right over the name, so let's take a look. Kirby. Congratulations, Kirby. You're on the board. Oh, I think this is your third one here. Let's take a look and see what Kirby won. All right, Kirby, you have received a Dave Robinson signed 8x10. Hall of Fame Dave Robinson. Great choice. Congratulations, Kirby. Thank you once again for everyone who took the time to fill this out or supports the show in one way or another. And thank you to Nicolay Law for making this happen. And let's get back to our episode with Kristy.
Yeah.
You mentioned big hockey. I know I'm cutting in on the Stanley Cup finals here, so
Oh,
I
it's okay. You
appreciate
know
you
what I
sharing
decided
time.
was I'm in my kind of like Packer she cave and stuff. I don't have a TV in here, and I watched the first 5 or 10 minutes of the hockey game, and I just recorded it. And I figure I'll just when we're done chatting, I'll jump back into it and
Skip some of the ads and
yeah,
work
yeah,
your way
and get
back through.
work my way live.
Who's your team in the NHL? Is it
Uh,
the
s-
Canucks?
yeah, so we're Canucks fans.
Okay.
Pretty diehard Canucks as well. It's different though, like in the way that, and this is where I think the NFL, and actually it's funny because my little cousin, who's, and I say little, she's now 20, going to be 21 this year. Last year she was like, I'm going to get into football. I'm going to be a Packers fan. I was like, okay, like I'm not getting excited or anything, like it's fine. And stuff. And so I was kind of explaining to her, like, because she's like, it seems like everybody's so passionate, and like she's like, nobody sits down at games, and like it's like everything, everybody eat, breathe, and sleep for like 5 months. And I said, yeah, it's different in hockey that you're playing, and same thing as like baseball, you're playing 80 some odd games in hockey and 160 something in
Yeah.
baseball, and in football it's one and done. Like
Mhm.
it's so every single game counts, and so that's where I think kind of the passion levels are a bit different. But
Mhm.
yeah, we're Canucks fans, and actually yesterday was the history, or I can't remember how many years, but it was it's in 1994. I'm terrible at math.
No,
Game
that's fair.
Yeah, game 6, Rangers, New York Rangers, Vancouver Canucks. And if the Canucks won, they were going to push to game 7 in New York, and somebody was going to win the Stanley Cup. And if they lost, New York would have won the Stanley Cup. And I was like 12 or 13, and my dad and I were at the game. And it
Wow.
was I mean, as much as I love the Packers, that was the greatest sporting event I've ever been at in my whole life. It was just insane and stuff. And then, of course, I don't know how, because of course no social media back then.
Yeah.
In 1994 in Vancouver here, we rioted during that Stanley Cup run. Like major riot, like windows, buses turned over, cars
Wow.
on fire, looting. Like, as much
Whoa.
as people think us Canadians are like so nice and friendly, it was like bad shit.
Yeah.
So then, um, that's 1994. Fast forward 2011, and the Canucks are in the Stanley Cup final again, and they're playing the Boston Bruins, and we riot again, like major riot, like like burn down the city, like I think
Wow.
it was like it was intense. It was really crazy, like giant stores just smashed
Wow.
windows, and people going inside, and people like assaulting the cops, and it
That's
was
wild.
totally crazy and stuff. So we're very passionate about our hockey in a different way, obviously, and stuff. But it was interesting because then the next year, 2012, I went to the Fail Mary game in Seattle,
Oh my.
and I have to think that that's probably one of my most interesting Packer NFL experiences that I tell people about and stuff.
Yeah.
It's So it was another primetime game, and I think it was Monday Night Football. And I went down with my girlfriend. She's a Packers fan as well, and we drove down to Seattle. It's about a 2 or 3 hour drive for us approximately. And so we got down there, great atmosphere. There's like, it's probably 60-40 Packer fans, Seahawks fans, and the Seahawks fans are pretty loud. It is true what they say about that stadium. It's pretty crazy there and stuff. And so we were in the opposite end zone to the catch, not catch. And so it happens, and we were like, what the heck just happened? I was like, I don't think so. I don't think that's a touchdown. Like, what is going on here? And immediately the fireworks go off, like the fireworks are going off and
Oh
stuff. And I'm
wow.
like, where's the replay? What's the replay? And then my phone started just like blowing up. Like I'm getting like texts like seconds after it ends, because the TV coverage, of course, is showing the replay over and over and over. And so we were just kind of sat there stunned, and all the other Packer fans, we were also kind of, everybody's in that same kind of like, what is happening and stuff. And so they were like, thank you so much, Seahawks win, tonight's attendance and stuff. And they're
Oh
like,
my.
get out. And we were like, okay. So we get up, and it was so crazy, because again, just like 8-10 months prior was this riot in June, in Vancouver. And at that time Seattle didn't have a hockey team. Now they have the Seattle Kraken, but at
Yep.
that time they had no hockey team. So a lot of the people in Washington State were Canucks fans. They have a pretty good hockey base there and stuff. So they were very aware of what had happened in downtown Vancouver. And so um, like immediately they shut the big screen off. And I thought, that is so strange. And I hadn't actually looked at all my phone yet. We were still kind of like in disbelief, but and stuff. They shut the big screen off. So we get up and we start kind of exiting the stadium. We were in the lower bowl, so we had a really good view of it, like, across and stuff. And all the little TVs were all off as well. And I noticed it
Wow.
right away. And I was walking, it felt eerie. And all the little TVs are off. There is no replays, there is no audio, there is no nothing happening and stuff. And never to this day have I even experienced that in a loss, like, where they turn off the TVs and stuff like that and stuff. And so then I started looking at my phone, and people were like, you guys just got robbed. Like, that was
Oh my.
insane. These fake refs gotta go. And we still had not to that point, because then at that point, there wasn't like, if you used your phone in the States having a Canadian cell phone, it cost you like $1 million. Like, so you really tried to not touch your phone if possible,
Right.
and stuff. So it wasn't like I was going to scroll Instagram right away and look at
Yeah.
the replays and stuff. It was like, oh my God, what just happened and stuff. And so we were walking back to where we had parked, and kind of, like when you're exiting a stadium of that size, it takes forever to get out, get your vehicle and stuff like that. And so we had been walking for probably like 25 minutes, where we all of a sudden, through downtown Seattle, there was a group of people, probably 30-40 people, and they were all huddled against this window of this store. And I thought, what's everybody doing? Like, it wasn't a bar or anything like that. They have a lot of bars in downtown Seattle and stuff. And I thought, what's happening here? And it was this little store, and this was the creepy part, was the store was not open, like the lights were off. It was, it had to be close to 9 o'clock at night, our time at that point. So 11 o'clock for you guys. And there was a little TV. It was about this big. It was like a tiny, tiny TV, like 6 by 6, and it was black and white. And it was showing the coverage of the game. And all these 40 people are like trying to look over, and they're all wearing Packers jerseys, and people are trying to figure out, like, and watching. And so we just stood till we got room to get in and look at it. And then we were like, holy moly.
Oh
And then it
my.
was a long drive back to the Canadian border, where, and then they had the radio coverage on. We were listening to Aaron talk about it and stuff like that. And yeah, it was crazy. But I still to this day think they turned all of the TVs and the screens off, because they knew right away that it had gone sideways, that it was the wrong call, and the wrong team won the game.
Yeah.
And I think they really didn't want anything to happen. And it was still so sensitive up here in this area, because they were using social media to try to identify the looters and the rioters and the people who had assaulted people and stuff like that at this
Wow.
Vancouver riot. And so I think they were really, really mindful of that. And so yeah, it was crazy.
That is, I am so happy you brought that up, because I just had someone on the show that is from Oregon, and he goes to Seattle to games every once in a while. And I asked him if he had went to the Fail Mary one, or if he had went during that era, because he said he's been to multiple Seattle games.
Yeah.
And I literally said in the podcast, like, oh, I wonder what that story would be like, or what that experience would be like at that game specifically.
Yeah.
So I am so happy that you shared that, because that is crazy. That is still, as I reflect back on Packer games I've watched, I think that's the maddest I've been at any game ever. And it was that game, because you knew you got robbed. You watched it right there, and how much it impacted down the way, like the seating
Yeah.
that it
Oh,
impacted was
yeah.
like so crazy. And then like I feel like that created like that rivalry for the Packers and Seahawks going forward
It's
was that moment.
Yeah, it was really impactful. And then of course, we know our history in the NFC Championship game
Yeah.
there, and then like yeah, it created that hatred for Seattle and stuff, which was great being a Packers fan in British Columbia, where there's like 10 million Seahawks fans,
Right.
and I'm like, yep, no. So it was good. The next time that they came was a Thursday night, and I think they wore their whiteout jerseys that night, or their whiteout uniforms. And it's, and this I love traveling for sports games like Packer games. I'm trying to tick off trying to go to every stadium, a game at every stadium.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Yeah, like not in any time frame, probably take 20 years, 30
Right.
years or something, but like
Well, especially you talked about the conversion rate there makes it a
yes,
little bit harder
yes,
too.
it does and stuff. Yeah, but of course, anytime they're in Seattle, that's like a gotta go type thing. And so,
Right.
the next time we were in Seattle was for this Thursday nighter, and it was so funny because we were in the lower bowl, and that was a game where we looked like we were maybe going to win it, and we didn't again, and stuff. But we
Story
had
of our life in Seattle.
Oh, I know, until till like December, which was like another story. But we had this guy in front of us, and he was wearing a camouflage Clay Matthews jersey, and he had like a big cowboy hat on, and he had put like spikes, like these spikes out of the jersey, like he was
Whoa.
wearing shoulder pads. And then it was kind of like, I don't know if you ever watched like wrestling back in like the 90s or
Yeah,
whatever, but it
like
was
the
like,
Hulk and Animal or whatever,
yeah, or like
or the war.
demolition, like,
Yeah.
or whatever, like. And so we had all these plastic spikes out of his thing, and it was kind of, and we were like, yeah. And of course, when the game's going well, we're all like, yeah. We're like, everybody's high fiving, and the Seahawks fans, like I said, are insane. They're all around us, and like they're all wearing crazy things too. Well, things started going sideways in that game, and this guy, he just, and still this day, I have no idea who he was or where he was from. He started breaking off all these, like, and there had to be on each shoulder like 50 or 60 on each shoulder. He started slowly breaking them off, and I was like, is that and he was directly in front of us. I was like, is that a stress thing that he was breaking them off? And then he left. It was so bizarre, but yeah, it was crazy. So yeah. And then of course, obviously this year we had finally a good experience there. I mean, all the experiences have been good. It's great always to get to see your team play, but getting a jump
Right.
is big. So
Is it a hostile environment? You hear stories all the time about, like, at least in
um
2012, that era was like really hostile to go in there. Did
yeah.
you feel that when you were at like the Fail Mary game, where things like amplified it all, or even the game afterwards, where
I think so. I think always there's a little bit of that going on where, people have got their chest puffed up and stuff, and I'm a better fan than you are, and that kind of thing.
right,
I what I heard mostly and was that I think, because I have heard people, it's kind of makes me think of Philly, which I haven't been to Philly yet, but like, they're throwing pee at you and stuff like that in bags. And I've heard that in the upper decks in Seattle, but
wow,
thankfully, I'm touching what I've been blessed to only sit in the lower level. Although, when we went and saw the Packers play the Raiders a couple years ago in Jordan Love's, like, kind of big coming out, we were in the lower bowl, and a fight broke out in our row. So I guess it doesn't really matter where you sit in the stadium, it could
right,
happen at any minute.
yeah,
So yeah.
wow. How was the experience last season then compared to 2012? Because I know a lot of people have said that maybe Seahawks fans are starting to sell tickets more often rather than going, because the demand's grown so much.
uh,
So, you heard
yeah.
the Go Pack Goes were so loud on TV.
Yeah, it was incredible because We had earlier or last season. We wanted to go to Nashville and see the Packers play there and tick that off. I had been to Nashville previously, but my husband had in a great city, and so um, we and then of course, like I said, if the Packers are going to be in Seattle, we're going to go. So we went. We had these trip lined up with the SoCal Packer backers.
Shut up,
Um,
Squad. Yeah.
yeah, so we with going along with them to Nashville, and of course, we know what happens week one, and so we went. We got to see Malik Willis throw down like an epic game in
Right.
Nashville, and get the big W. That was like so incredible. And then Jordan comes back, and now we're going to Seattle, and it's like, yeah, can we get something good in Seattle? And yeah, Seattle, since the Russell Wilson era kind of fell apart there. I had heard that people, the fans there, were selling their tickets and stuff, and so I think I said at the Fail Mary game it was like 60% Seahawks, 40%
Hmm.
Packers. I would say in Seattle this last year it was the opposite. I bet it was 40% Seahawks
Wow.
fans and 60% Packer fans.
That's
Um,
that's that's kind of a shame for them because that was like their thing for the longest time was how loud of a stadium they were and how
yeah,
difficult it was.
Yeah, they had the
And
rumors like Kansas City that are they pumping in crowd noise and stuff like
right.
that. But I don't know. Maybe Sam Darnold will be the answer.
Yeah.
Who
We'll,
knows?
we'll see. We'll
Uh,
see. I don't
yeah,
know. I shouldn't laugh because
uh,
I thought it was going to be a train wreck for him last year, and
yeah.
he looked good. So I shouldn't laugh
It'll be
because
interesting to watch and stuff. But it was fun. And that's the again really cool part about traveling and meeting Packer fans and seeing people and and then the same thing like with social media. Like we were in well, two things happened in the recently that was I thought was pretty cool. One was at the Seattle game, and the Seattle game they have this huge staircase as you come down to exit the stadium out into the parking lot, and then you're in the downtown area. So of course we got the big W. It was awesome. We're no, feeling no pain. It's Sunday night. It's December. There's a lot of hot mulled wine in the stadium and stuff. And so we exit out and we're coming down the stairs and we're with a few fans. I don't know if you know Marcos, Senior Cheesehead.
yep. Hmm.
We're with him and his wife and Dave from the SoCal Packer backers, and I can see across the parking lot like. I want to see meters. I'm trying to think like feet because you guys aren't on meters.
Yeah,
It'd
we
be
got
like,
our we got our
two,
weird units.
yeah, 300 feet away. All of a sudden, I was like this, and I was like, "Is that Steve, the owner?" And it was like, "It is." And I was like, and I've met him in Green Bay before, and I was like, "Steve, Steve!" And I'm like screaming and stuff. And then everybody else, of course, knows him too. And so now all of a sudden, here we're like, 2,100, 2,200 miles away from Wisconsin, and there's Steve, the owner, and we're all taking photos and stuff. And that's what I love about social media and developing friendships and
Yeah.
making connections with Packer fans like around the world. It's just so cool. We were in Vegas for that game year before last, and we were on Fremont Street, and all of a sudden I saw this guy and I was like, I know him. I was like, I know him. I was like, is that the guy with the German flag? And I was like, hey, Packers Germany. And he was like, hi. And the same thing. We've been following each other for a hot minute too, and
Yeah.
stuff. And then the next thing you know, like we're hanging out and on the Fremont Street, and we've been following each other on social media for like years and years, and now all of a sudden randomly we've ran into each other in person, and I just really love that.
There's a lot of flaws to social media, but if there's anything good, it's the fact that it can bring together people that would probably not know each other otherwise,
Yeah,
and the bond that you can have over something like a sports team. It really, I've met so many incredible people through social media just because they're Packers fans, and it's such a cool thing to have that
yeah,
out of all things that social media brings you. At least they bring you that. Uh,
totally.
so you've been to a handful of stadiums now at this point. From your stories alone here, we've talked about Nashville, Las Vegas, Seattle, Green Bay. Am I missing any on those?
We were. I've been to the new stadium in Santa Clara.
Okay.
So yeah, that was Sunday Night Football. The night I think we scored almost 0 points.
Yeah, that was the
Um,
rough one with Rogers, right? That was
yeah, and
bad.
and it's and I really love the narratives and stuff. Like I like the build up. I like the, it's they passed on him and now here he's
Yeah.
coming back and he's gonna kill them and we can never beat anybody in the NFC Championship game ever, except once in a while and stuff. And so we're gonna crush you on Sunday Night Football, and then like it's goose eggs.
No, yeah,
And
it was bad.
but I do like all that build up, and that's where I am pretty excited that he is going to play for the Steelers this
Me
year.
too.
I love all of like the all of the I think he brings a lot to the league, and I like hearing all the stuff that's going on. It's pretty good. So
Yeah, I think it's interesting how quick Packer fans like turned on him on stuff.
yeah.
Because I don't really think he's kind of he does his own thing. He's an odd dude in a lot of ways, but like I don't know, in all things considering, like he's done so much for the Packers organization, that I still hope he does well. I have friends in Pittsburgh that are big Steelers fans, and I was super happy that he signed with Pittsburgh, and I hope he does really well for him. I'd love to see a Packers Steelers Super Bowl again. I think
Oh
that'd
my
be a fun
gosh,
one.
me too. Like, yeah, and I hope he does well. And like you said, he's kind of weird dude and all this stuff going on and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where I try to like not get fixated on
Yep.
a specific player. Like I definitely have like favorites over the years. Clay Matthews, Jordy Nelson, BJ Raji, you just love watching them play and when they
Yep.
do something awesome. And I really like, underdog story and that kind of thing and stuff. But um unless we really don't know any of these people and what they do behind closed doors,
Right.
and you get a little glimpse on social media, but that's where all of a sudden somebody does something and everybody's so shocked and now they hate this person and stuff. And I was like, we never knew them. Like
Yeah.
we are not their friends. We don't go home with them. Like, so I try to kind of differentiate the person from the player type
Yeah.
thing if I can and stuff. But I do like a little bit of crossover where some of that kind of stuff.
Right. Right. Well,
Yeah.
and the other thing is like, I don't know. He's not doing anything illegal. He's not doing anything like, I
Yeah.
don't know. Like
Yeah.
he's just doing. It's certainly
Yeah.
not. It doesn't align with what I would do. But like that doesn't necessarily mean that. I don't know. It doesn't mean he's a bad person by any means in some of the regard. But I don't know. It is what it is, I guess, at this point. But I do love that. Like I can tell you're in marketing because I work in marketing as well. And like loving the narrative, right? And loving the
Yeah.
story because that's all marketing is, right? It's like
Yeah.
we love the stories and the story leading up to something.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
saw
cracking me up.
today the Mark Murphy 1, 2, 3 Super Bowl from mini camp today, that he like ended his speech with that 1, 2, 3 Super Bowl, and I was like, we are going to hear that for the rest of the season,
I
and I
hope so.
freaking love it. I was like,
Yeah.
it makes me think of like Relax and the other things that we had going on and stuff. And
Right.
I when I read that earlier today, I was like, this is going to be on t-shirts. I was like, this is going to be everywhere, and I thought that's
Love it.
amazing. Could you imagine like for him to have said that, and then maybe we make the Super Bowl like
Oh man. I'm here
yeah.
for it. It feels like, man, it feels like it's so long overdue. It feels like it's such a crime that Rogers and Company only got one. There's so
Yeah.
many times we were at the door and just one bad thing or another happened that closed that door. So it just feels like it'd be so nice to see one finally get back
Oh,
after.
totally. And that's kind of where people were, oh no, but people are freaking out, and that we're moving on from him and stuff, and that's it. We're never going to win anymore. And I kind of thought, uh, I love him. He's an amazing player, but I think his time was done. And
Yeah.
I don't think we are going to get back to another Super Bowl with him.
No.
So I thought it was a good time for a breakup, and I hope that he does well, and obviously I hope Jordan Love can take us all the way this year.
Yeah. Yeah. I think fans are always worried about breaking away because you see in the NFL when you don't have a quarterback how difficult life can be.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that it doesn't get better with age. Like continuing to throw out an old quarterback who's maybe having issues. Not that he had like but he broke his thumb in 22. So you
Yeah.
got some injury stuff on
Yeah.
there. You got some other stuff. So maybe you're starting to think, okay, you got age and injuries happening. 17, he had an injury. No, yeah, 17, he broke his collarbone. 18,
Yeah.
he broke his leg, but he
Yeah.
still played on that.
Yeah.
22, he breaks his thumb. So you're like, okay, well, we got this guy who's getting up in age, and he's had some injuries in the last 5 years. I don't know. Yeah, so it's tough, but I think
It was the
I
same
was
kind of
with
thing
you.
this week with Jair and everybody like
Yeah,
crying and saying it was funny because somebody messaged me on Instagram and they were like, I can't believe it. I'm devastated. And I wrote back, and I'm normally like always a glass half full. I'm usually
yeah,
always pretty positive. I was like, I think I'm the only person in the world that is gonna say I'm not sad about this. And then I saw somebody else post something similar and stuff. And I mean, he was obviously, phenomenal.
yep,
And then he was injured, and then
yeah,
he played two half seasons 2 years in a row. And I thought, I hate to like say that it was kind of like David Bakhtiari getting back into action. Like we all wanted it to happen
yep,
and hoping, waiting and stuff. So I mean, again, I hope he does well in wherever he lands, but
yeah.
I wasn't.
I just hope it's not the division. I just want to see him go.
Oh,
I want to see him
he,
go to like Carolina
yeah,
or something like that,
anywhere.
and
The Browns,
yeah, go somewhere else. But I'm always
right?
worried that they're going to end up in the division because it
Yeah,
seems
no
to be
more.
how it goes. Like
Yeah,
he'll be in Detroit or something,
yeah, something
whatever. But
ridiculous.
um,
Minnesota.
yeah, but yeah, and I think if you're a fan long enough too, like I think you just kind of get used to that heartbreak of players that maybe you really like, that doomsday comes for it
Yeah,
eventually, and at a certain point it stops kind of surprising you the same way because you've dealt with it so many times. We like you mentioned Clay, we watched him get cut and Jordy get cut, and
yeah,
these guys that you thought would be around forever that get cut. And it's kind of like the Packers way is to try to get
yeah.
rid of them
Aaron
a little bit
Jones.
earlier rather
Yeah,
than being too late on it, where it's definitely tough. But we'll see what happens. We'll see if it's the right move. I'm curious. What was kind of curious to me is how they handled the offseason, if that was truly their intentions all along, right? We didn't draft a corner like high. We didn't go after one in free agency. I
yeah.
guess I'm sorry, we got Nate Hobbs in free agency, but you'd think that you'd add more because we lost Eric Stokes. So
Mhm.
you're kind of not really adding anything at that point. You're kind of just replacing. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and how that week one roster looks. But
Yeah, I'm excited.
um as you look over, I'm going to pull up some notes because I always have some
Okay.
questions that ask at the end here. But as you look over the games that you've traveled away, what was your favorite place to watch the Packers, like your favorite stadium, and what was your least favorite?
Okay. Well, obviously, I have to say my favorite was Lambeau.
Okay, I'm going to take Lambeau out of the occasion,
Okay, you
or
gotta
out
take
of the
that one out. Okay.
because that's a given
Um,
for sure. Out of the
um,
away ones.
I'm gonna say Nashville. Um, I like an open air stadium a lot. So Vegas is inside. Santa Clara, the Niners Stadium is really steep. It was like
Really?
that. Yeah, like you need a harness to sit in the upper deck to keep you in your seat. The Nashville Stadium is just smaller than some of the big stadiums. And now they're of course getting a new one, and you can see the Nashville skyline. You can walk to it from downtown. It just has a really good vibe to it, and the fans there were really friendly and
Yeah,
stuff. So I
I've
think
always
that
heard
was
that.
probably one of my favorites. And then I can't not say my least favorite is. I have to say my least favorite is Seattle because I hate Seattle. So yeah, I'd say just for
I I
history, Seattle.
I think that's appropriate. I don't blame
Yeah.
you one bit. Hey, it's Ben again. Sorry to jump in, but I wanted to give you this week's word of the week so you could enter for your chance to win some Packers memorabilia next week during the show. This week's word of the week or phrase of the week is none other than me. So Ben or the Green Bay guy or the doofus who does a podcast, whatever you want to put, I think I'll kind of get the idea. But if you've never done so before, find the link in the giveaway. It's going to be in the show notes. It's going to say giveaway, enter here. Fill that out. When I ask for the word of the week, put whatever you want as long as I know it's kind of referring to me. And you'll be entered. Maybe you'll win next week. Good luck to you. As always, I want to say thank you to Nicolay Law for making these possible. So a huge shout out to Nicolay Law. the personal injury law firm who knows the Midwest because they're from the Midwest. They're not some out of town law firm guessing how things work around here. Nicolay Law is local. They live in the communities they serve and understand folks around here and what we really need. There's someone who shows up, listens, and gets results. So if you've been injured and you want to get what's fair for you, give Nicolay a call. You can reach them at 1-855-NICOLAY or nicolaylaw.com and talk to one of their representatives over there. All right. I always end the show with some, like, I call them like the burning hot questions. These are just like random thrown out questions that are just to try to get you to think of something on the spot here. So first one, if you could sit down and have a conversation with any person associated with the Green Bay Packers, alive or dead, and I usually exclude some people, so I'm going to exclude like Vince Lombardi, Reggie White. Who would you choose and why, excluding those two?
Excluding those two, I probably would say Jordy Nelson. He's one of my all-time favorites. I like that he's kind of a low-key guy.
Yeah.
You know, didn't have a big ego. You know, and that's where kind of they put up on sometimes you'll see on social, it'll be like, who did you like better, Devontae or Jordy? You know, for Aaron and stuff like that. And I'm like, they're two totally different people. Like in terms of, you know, like even if social media was what it is now, back then when you know, the Nelson era and stuff like that, I just don't see, he's not as flashy and stuff, and I'm kind of a little bit low key like that. So I'd probably love to sit down with him for sure and.
I think the only way you're getting conversation out of him is maybe if you're talking about like farming. That might be the only conversation.
And I like farming.
Oh, perfect.
We live in farm country as well here, so it's good. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that it's a hard, like you said, you're on the spot to think about somebody. So.
Yeah, and I think it's always good to go with your gut reaction. So I think that's a great answer for sure. If you could watch any game again for the first time, having the same emotions or feelings as you did the first time you watched it, and I'm going to exclude Super Bowls and championship games, so like no NFC championship games, no Super Bowls, which game would you choose and why?
To rewatch. I would, you know, you saw, maybe I would say Fail Mary game just because it was so historical and things like that.
Right.
But I really love that Cowboys game. I mean, I shouldn't say any words of I love the Cowboys because that could be taken and edited into something else and stuff. So I would say that Cowboys game, just because it went to overtime, and I love Big Mike and stuff. So it was really cool being there on Big Mike's return, and that
was Christian Watson's like come out game, right?
It was, yeah. It was like, you know, the flips in the end zone and stuff like that, and again, you know, as you're at a live event, especially when you don't get to go to them all the time, it's you're kind of clock watching and you're like, oh my goodness, there's only, you know, 30 more minutes of gameplay left, there's only this. And so for it to have gone to overtime was pretty exciting. And you know, overtime, it's kind of the same thing in the hockey right now. If it goes to double triple overtime, I'm like, this is amazing, because you know, you really don't know what's going to happen. It could go either way and stuff. So if I could go back to and it would be probably that one.
I think that's a stellar answer. If you could attend any game in the history of the Green Bay Packers, and I'm excluding championships again, so no Super Bowls, no Ice Bowl or anything like that, which game would you choose to attend?
I would go with Miracle in Motown.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's a solid answer there. I like it.
Yeah, I think that would have been, and I'm sure there was a ton of fans there that might have traveled up from Green Bay and stuff. So, but it was pretty epic, you know.
And probably a lot of fans coming in from Canada, I would imagine.
Yeah,
right?
from and Canada's such a big country, and a lot of people don't realize how
it's
big
huge.
It is.
I mean, it's as wide as America. So
yeah, it's we could fly from Vancouver to Chicago faster than we could fly to Toronto, which is where you'd fly to drive to
Wow.
Detroit. It would be faster to fly to Chicago from here. So
Wow.
that kind of tells you how big. So yeah, I'm sure there was a lot of Canadian fans there too, which would have been awesome.
Yeah.
But definitely that game, I would have loved to have seen that Rogers in person.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have some family that lives in Ontario, so I think they go through that way to get in and out, if I'm not mistaken, that
Yeah,
Detroit
that's
way.
where.
So
Yeah, through there.
that's the only way. That's the only reason I thought about that or whatever. But um, the Packers don't have a traditional owner. There's thousands and thousands of us. But let's say you woke up tomorrow and you are the owner. You have full say to do whatever you want. If you want to change something in the stadium, if you want to change something on the roster, if you want to do whatever, you're in control. What is the first thing you do and why?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I'm the owner. What am I gonna do?
It's a tough one. There's a lot.
That's super tough. Oh wow, you got me stumped almost. Jeez. Ugh. I this will probably sound super cheesy, but I would probably I might go with throwing out right away another stock option so that we
Oh,
could get more owners from around the world. So
so like worldwide.
yeah,
I
because
suppose because you buy in Canada? Can you buy stock?
yes, I've got my share certificate right down here.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, and stuff. So you can. In the this last sale, they made it accessible first for you guys in the States, and then, but I have a US address, so which is great. But then they opened it up after
That's
to
great.
Canadians and stuff. But in the previous, there was no opening for Canadians or anything and
Yeah.
stuff. And so then, yeah, I know that they're trying to go. I know NFL is trying to go more global
Yep.
and worldwide and stuff. So yeah, I'd say, hey, let's get more owners around the world.
An owner of the people. I like it. I like it. Any other stories, anything else that you feel like we didn't capture here?
Um, I'm just trying to peek. I've seen I had a couple notes too. I thought just in case. Oh, well, I know on the. I'm hoping that the Canadian quarterback is going to make the practice squad. Maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was pretty cool. First, they my dad said like he didn't get drafted obviously and at the draft and my dad said my dad's a big college football fan and said if he had left Ontario and gone to US college for the last couple of years he probably would have, but
sure.
as a Canadian fan it would be incredible if
You
he got
never
to
know what could happen.
yeah, I'm and stuff. I'm just trying to think if there's anything exciting that I was like just in case same I thought um
That kind of makes me think of it now that you brought that up though. Do you watch a lot of CFL as well?
Um,
Because it's a
uh,
completely different game. I see highlights of it. I'm
yeah,
like, what is
so
going on here?
it's like a mix of football and rugby
Sure.
and stuff, and it's there's actually a country song by a country singer called Tim Hicks, and in one of the lines in the song is the songs I think is called Stronger Beer or something. It says like it's talking about all the differences between us and stuff, and they're like we have CFL and you have NFL and we have three downs in the CFL, so it turns
Okay.
over a lot quicker. The
Sure.
other thing is, and I don't know if you remember the preseason game that they hosted in Winnipeg a few years ago,
Yep.
Manitoba. The goal post is in the middle of the end zone,
Yes,
which
that's
is
right.
so ridiculous. And so for me, it's just not as spectacular.
Yeah.
Especially for some of those, the Hail Marys and some of that kind of stuff where you're like, you're gonna have to turn around and make sure you don't hit your face on the goalpost
Right.
here, like
Right.
as you're like running your route.
Yeah.
So my dad actually tried out for the RCFL team, the BC Lions, way back in
Really?
the 50s. He was too tall, and so he went into a different profession. But he's a big CFL fan, so I loosely follow it. because of him and stuff, and he played high school football and stuff like that. And
That's so
actually,
cool.
yeah, it's actually funny because they moved once my grandpa got up here and stuff, and they had a family. They moved to Oregon for a while, and this would have been in the like 50s, and there wasn't a lot of moving around then, like internationally and stuff
Yep.
like that, as it is now. And so my dad said that the teacher in Oregon would make him read all the lessons to the class because they liked his Canadian accent and stuff. And then eventually they moved back up here to Canada. But
That's
yeah,
fun.
so CFL's kind of meant for me. So yeah, so not a
That's
lot.
one thing I forgot to ask you too is where, uh, and if you don't want this, I can edit this out. But
Okay.
um, you're very passionate on Instagram. Where can people find you on Instagram if they want to follow you?
Oh yeah.
If you want to give out your
Yeah,
handle.
that's fine. Yeah. It's my Instagram handle is Packers Girl Canada. And I chose that because I again have I said earlier that I love traveling and meeting fans around the
Yes.
world, and so I thought that it was a really cool way to let people know where I was from. That I was that Packers fan from Canada. So I started using that, and definitely people can follow me there, and hopefully we'll meet in person someday. To anybody who follows me, it would be awesome.
Yeah, you're a great person to follow. I can't recommend it enough to anyone who's listening to go check out your page and go give you a follow because
Thanks.
I love the passion that like flows through your page because it's just it's
Thanks.
it's authentic passion. So that's always great to see. And that is going to do it for this week's episode with Kristy. I want to say thank you so much to Kristy for taking the time to come on the show and share her story. It was such a blast and honor on my end to capture it. I also want to say thank you to Nicolay Law for sponsoring the show and making the giveaways possible. If you are injured, get Nicolay. We only have, I think, a few more episodes left on the off season, and then we're going to go back to the live shows that we did all year last year. So we're nearing down the countdown here. So thank you to everyone who's taken the time to watch one. If it's your first one, thank you. If it's your 17th now at this point, thank you so much. Until next time, my name is Ben. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Go Pack Go.